Howdy howdy, welcome back to my channel on building out a DIY expedition camp. I got some new videos coming up, a lot of new videos. I know it's been a long delay for my videos and I apologize for that. Work has been killing me, a lot going on with the work and also just some other life stuff. So I've been very behind on getting videos released, although I'm still building out my camper. Moving forward, I've got a lot of amazing content as this thing is really coming along. As a matter of fact, the whole entire cab now is fully insulated. I'll have a bunch of videos on how I insulated that and really dramatically improved even the sound that I can hear just myself right now. I'll also have these nice Shieldman seats installed, and I've got a bunch of other upgrades that I'll be sharing with you from the cab, but also back in the cabin here. And this has been a lot of work, both outside and inside the cabin. I can't wait to share with you a lot of really interesting innovations. As you guys know, I don't do things easily or simply. Nope, that's not me. What I could have done for my pass-through door here to do a couple of things. One, cut down the engine noise and the other road noise. Also, insects, cold air, hot air coming in between here and the cab and the camper. I've got a couple different sealing options on the exterior that are going to be done, but also I want to make sure to seal on the inside. And because there's a cab over me and the cab flips forward, flips 90 degrees forward in order to access the engine, which is right here. Why I did so much insulation, I want to make sure that I have the cab and the cabin, the house, secure when the cab is flipped forward. So one, this is my bathroom right here. Obviously I want to make sure I have that enclosed. But also, if this is our flip forward for service somewhere, I've got to like leave it somewhere to shop or something. I want to make sure that this is both safe, everything inside of here, and that also weather is not going to be coming in, bugs and all the other stuff. So I want to make sure I have a good solid door on both sides, the cabin or house side and the cab side. So what I've done is to simplify that. Instead of to reach back and slide something or untether something down every time I want to lock it up, secure it, I pull into a parking lot somewhere overnight, whatever. I just want to be like, going to quickly go to bed, I want to go and get some groceries, but I want to secure it. I've set it up where it's really automatic. It simply is pushing a button, or even just automatic where I start the ignition or turn it off and it goes ahead and closes. Right, I start the ignition, I can then go and manually turn it back up. It enables that. So let me show you what I did here for my cab pass-through door. There we go. What I did is really try to electrify a lot of things, right, for both simplicity's sake, but also to make sure that I can really operate and control things, as all it is pushing a button. So you can see that what's going on here is that this is very slow, right? No doubt about it. It's much slower than I wanted to. Partly the actuator I had to use was a pretty small actuator, so it's not a lot of power. It's also a pretty slow one in order to get that extra power out of it. Nonetheless, it does close automatically. Now, done. Now it's all sealed up. Partly why there's a lot of friction here is it's all sealed up all the way around, bottom, sides, and top. And so there, you can't get air through there. It has got an incredibly tight seal. It actually, the seals loosen up a little bit as it goes up on the top here and the bottom, but the sides are, there's actually 3 layers of seals. I've got this nice hard dark surface that really just disguises it. You kind of never really notice from down below. Of course, I'll ultimately have another door on the inside here that'll also electrically close. I'm going to go into that in a little bit as well. It's actually going to be a multi-fold sliding door, because that way I can have it all the way pushed to one side and still have the most access space through the vertical height is really my limit here. So I want to take up any vertical height. In that, I don't want anything swing up because I feel like that was dangerous to have a big door that would swing up or swing down, right? And plus it's in your way when it's up, or it's in your way if it's swung down, and it really wouldn't be able to swing all the way down to cover this space. Same thing on the inside there. Why I didn't have it swing up, because it would have to swing 180 and get completely out of the way, but then I have double the thickness of the door and the thickness of the space where it was. And so take up more of my space within the bathroom. Plus it gets pretty dangerous to have this 30-inch high door swinging all the way down through the whole entire bathroom space. Of course, what I could have done is done something that slid this way, but I don't quite have enough length to go this way and still cover the full opening. And that would have been a little bit easier, but also that would have taken up space on my cabinets over here. So my cabinets now can tuck in really nice here up against this wall over here on that side of the bathroom. So Pretty easy, pretty simple. This all can be controlled really just by a switch, you know, for manual and or also, like I said, purely electronic. And of course, the nice thing is too, if I really want to hide or disguise with my ability to open or close those, I can do that, right, from a security point of view. No need for locks or anything like that. It's not a fabric that could be cut or where bugs or something probably could get around, right? So this fully is, it is sealed, it is strong, right? So I'm going to tell you how I did this and how I made this work in a very tight little space. That basically this whole door is a little less than 2 inches in total thickness, fully insulated and fully sealed up and watertight. Nothing combustible, nothing that can absorb water and cause an issue. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right, I am ready to install my cabin pass-through door. And if you remember, I have 2 pass-through doors. One on the cabin side here and one on the cab side. Now I'm going to install the cabin side one. This also blocks off my shower, so that way I have a watertight shower space here from the cabin. This is going to be a bit tricky. I've got to lift this thing up all by myself. It's fairly heavy, fairly big. Fit it into that track on that side while I get this track on the door itself around the seals, and then push it and slide it into place onto this track here or this frame. And then I've got to start putting in all the screws, 12 bolts, all the way up and down this frame here to hold in place. And I've got it positioned hopefully correctly so that I can, at the door all the way down, I can get basically the top 6 bolts in, and then I slide the door up and I'll be able to get the bottom 6 bolts in. So let's give this a try. Here we go. Top to the top. So I've got that all positioned right now. I've got all my seals all around. All right, so let's give this a try. Okay, I think I got a little bit too zealous there on my sealing. The challenge I have is that the width from really the seal here all the way to the other end of the seal is exactly really the width of my frame, and I need a slight bit of a gap in there. The other one challenges I have also on this width right here, this width with this rubber seal on this, slightly compressed, is exactly the thickness of my frame, or the gap that I have within my frame. All of that just too tight is the bottom line, and so I'm going to have to do at least one thing, and possibly 2. One thing is I'm going to have to remove this nice wool strip here. It just does not compress down enough. Even though it's the softest hardness I could get, it's still just too hard. So I'm going to have to remove that because that is just making the width just a little too much. These carpeted seals will be fine. These will compress down, and I can replace this in the middle here with some kind of like a rubber gasket, a bulb seal that'll compress down well. This bulb seal on this end doesn't really compress all that much, and I put quite a bit of work in to use a hole punch to hole punch through this rubber on this holes, because it's got a flange or a flap that comes underneath and gets bolted in here. I may just have to forego that and just remove these rubber seals to really be able to get that into the frame here. I'm going to try to just remove the wool seal here and see if that's enough to be able to get this in here on the width wise, and also the width here on the frame. Hopefully that is. And therefore, here we go. Try 3.5 here. Now that I've removed these seals, the rubber seals, I can feel already going in so much easier. Those rubber seals were obviously really holding it in. She's in! She's in! You! Okay, now I just have to get this track, all these holes lined up with these captive nuts in here. You can see my 3 rows of vertical seals in here. These are typical carpeted automotive seals, like a plastic strip down the middle to prevent any airflow from going in or out. Typically vehicles only use 1 of these, like for a window seal or something. I've got 3 layers, so yes, it's very well sealed, but they have pretty low friction, allowing this to slide well within the track. That are held in with that tape, and you can see on my track here, I've got quite a bit of push out, so I got to get this pushed all the way in. That's because of this seal here compressing. It's why I lifted up the door a little bit, because this seal really compresses against the frame here, the pass-through, which is what I want. I want to keep any air or water coming in at all. The bottom's easy to seal up. I have a couple nice bulb seals in the bottom of the door there. That'll smash down onto a nice frame down there. This bulb seal really is important to keep the air coming in from the top, and then of course all my different seals here to keep my air coming in from the side. So now I got this in place. Great. Now it's time to get these bolts in And one by one, when you have a vertical column, you know, say like this right here, right, going up, how do you put a drop-in nut, a roll-in nut like this in here, right, and keep it from just sliding out like that, which happens quite a bit, and it's quite annoying, of course, especially when you're trying to hold in a spot, and sometimes it just slides down, and if you don't have like something like this to capture it, it's just going to keep going all the way down. You might lose it down at the bottom somewhere, or at least not be in the place you want it, particularly when you're mounting a panel over it. When you mount a panel over this, you want that slide-in nut, drop-in nut to stay exact where it is, or any nut, right, for that matter. In this case, I'm doing that right here. I've got a track here that I already have with all my holes and everything drilled into it where I want these. These to be countersunk holes. And then I've got markings. When I went ahead and marked this, put in its exact vertical orientation and marked it. And you can see then I have these little pieces of green painter's tape, right? This right here. And the purpose of this green painter's tape put in here is so we put these drop-in nuts in here, right? And they slide down like that. Sometimes you push them in a hole like that, but sometimes you just touch them a little bit, you put that panel there and see it falls out. Now my green painter's tape here is going to hold this in position, and so that's good when I put this frame here for the pass-through door over this. I need to make sure these nuts are all going to be retrievable, and you'll notice what I've done here. The blue mark where exactly I need to be is right there. This is just slightly above that, say, you know, 1/4 of an inch, you know, 4 millimeters, something of that nature, right? That's intentional, and that's intentional. I also intentionally place this nut. You'll notice with the hole on the top side, right? The hole is not centered on this nut. It's actually offset, you know, more to one side. I intentionally placed it where the vast majority of the metal's on the bottom, and that way, because this piece here, I can slide it up more than I can slide it down. So I want to make sure I've got ability to slide it up to get my holes aligned, right? Not all these green pieces of tape are going to hold their nuts in exactly the same vertical position. That's okay. I can slide this frame up and down once I get it in here, but that way I can slide up and down. And now, what if this nut's a little too high? No big deal. As I get the screw in there and I push down, this painter's tape will just simply move down with it. Right now it's just pushed in there, just a little ball of it pushed in, but it's not sticky enough that it's going to hold it in position. So this will allow the nut to slide down into its final position. So this holds all these into position while I'm putting something over them. So that's my real trick that I use to make sure I can hold all these drop-in nuts exactly where I need them to be. It gets really frustrating when you have, let's say, 10 of them, like I do in this here that I'm going to install, and you get all of them installed, and then one of them just falls out and drops down, right? And then you lose it behind the piece that you're installing. And then you got to take them all out, restart over, and as you're doing that, more fall out, you're moving the screws, and then you got to get them all back in position again. You can spend a lot of frustrating time dealing with that. So it's my trick to that. Green painter's tape, not only is it cheap, it doesn't rust, it's lightweight, and of course, you know, you need a little tiny bit of it. Just rip off a little strip and stick a ball in there, and voila, you've got your nut held. Alright, so you can see my green masking tape right in here. These ones I can actually pull it out. I told you it's my cheap, simple, lightweight, non-corrosive, easy way. I've got my roll-in nuts. Now I just have to get this track lined up. Pretty easy, at least initially, to get us started. I grab my little box of bolts here and just start getting these in. I just have to keep sliding this track up and down a little bit to make sure I have alignment. That going in, yep. I don't want to tighten these all down yet because I do have to slide this door up to make sure I can get the bolts here that are below the door. Okay, so now they got this track in its exact vertical position. How do I know? Because right here I put a spacer of the exact material that's going in here. Bump up here with the adhesive sealant that is sealing this piece, completely watertighting it in. This piece is going to get bolted in there, and I know it fits because, of course, it's the same material I'm going to use. And so I can fit that right in there. I've got this position now. I can just get this tightened in and then connect this actuator for this door so I can get this thing working and operating and held up out of my way while I'm doing the rest of this work. Good news, I could slide the door up and put in a jack here to hold it up so that way I don't get impinged underneath it. Just a temporary setup for right now. And other good news is the door seals incredibly well. It is actually really strong and tight for me to even just push it on my own. But that's all good for just getting this in place for now, and that's going to seal up really well. My seals are gripping well, so I can just start accessing these and then I can slide my truck down to the final position here, get that set in place, and then get my actuator here. And let me show you why I had to build the door this way. So you'll notice my door's got a big center track right here, big open track on the top, but all the way down to the bottom here. That's where my actuator is going to go inside of. And then this will be able to be covered over. And this is how I had to make this work, because of course the actuator, the stroke I need here, it's going to be the length of the stroke times 2, plus it's space for the motor and the gearbox, right? So I have to be able to account for that. And you can see up at the top there, I don't have any additional space up there. I basically have less than a foot of additional space for basically a bathroom cabinet that's going to be built out up there that the actuator is going to sit in the middle of, and then the two sides here are going to be some bathroom cabinets. The actuator goes all the way down the middle here. That's how I fit the actuator and hide it effectively. Keep it waterproof, because this will all be covered over by a big cover here. In addition to a door cover, a cover over this door frame. And so you'll see all that in a future video. And one more thing you're probably questioning is like, well, is this really door strong enough? It's incredibly strong. But what I'm going to do is add also some additional horizontal bracing just across these two spots here, just to make sure that really nobody can break in through that, right? Cut their way in, break in. And so that'll really prevent that. And then I'm just going to fill this whole door with insulation before I cover it all up. Sometimes you have to get really creative, and I had to do that here for my cabin pass-through door frame that holds up my linear actuator. And this frame here, which is all loosened up right now, but I've had to literally cut down this upper piece of 80/20 right here in half, or a little more than half, and I've had to actually cut the corners out of these two pieces right here so I can raise this thing up far enough to accommodate for my bottom down there and my seals that are going to be at the bottom of this door, so that way I can move this up as high as possible. All right, so I've got my adjustments done up here. Everything's all tightened up, and this is what it's gained me. As you can see all the way down here, push the wire all the way, you can see it's gained me quite a bit. Now I'm just going to go ahead and jack this up, the door up, get the pins aligned in the actuator here. There we go. Okay, got that final pin in there. And what I have here is a 30-inch actuator. Now this gives me 30 and almost 30 and 3/4 inches. I have a 1/2 inch finished material that's going to go down here in the bottom. And then I've got my seal on top of that, so it's going to be 1/4 inch for my seal with its compression. That sounds about right. I may need to bring it down just like 1/8 of an inch or so, but either way, we're right in the exact ballpark where it needs to be. And you probably can't quite see this, but basically gives me a nice clear opening all the way through where my door sits, actually up about 1/2 an inch or so above my opening here. And with the seals and stuff, that I'll put it just above that with the seal on the bottom, so that way it doesn't get wear and everything else, but creates a little bit of a nice cushion when the head bumps it, if it does. So it gives me my full width of full height of my opening, which really my width is not my limiting factor. It's really my height. It is my limiting size to getting through. So I want to make sure I maximize that. And it's still, again, a finished piece of material that's going to go all the way over this as well. So I got to take that into account. So now this is all in there. Let's get this actuator wired up, tested, and see how this door slides up and down. So now that I've got the linear actuator in, right, one of the things that I did when I designed and built this was to really minimize my channel width here so we can have as much insulation as door as possible. You can see I have the actuator centered up here, but it's not down here at the bottom, and that's because the way this mount is, the hole's not in the middle, it's all the way offset to one side. And because all the way offset to one side, and I don't have enough width to center this because of the mount, I have two options. I can either cut the mount down, right, and then slide it over. And these are pretty heavy duty steel, and they take a lot of work to cut through for the tools that I have. The other option, of course, is just build my own mount and just drill a new hole right in the center. And that's the easier path for me to take. I can get exactly right. And so what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of aluminum channel I've already cut to length, specific to this width, and I'm going to put a hole right in the middle. This channel doesn't be so high because this actuator is not flopping down like this mount's made to do. It's purely just going straight up and down. So any kind of side-to-side angle is going to be minimal, particularly once I get this all completely centered in here, right? So I got to just simply get that mount made and then get this reconnected to the new mount, the new hole here in the middle that'll be drilled out for the pin size here. So that's it. So I got to get that done. I've got my middle supports in here. These are really just purely from a security point of view, just additional security. So if somebody were trying to break in, it really would minimize their ability to do that. Let's go get this done and get this door checked off the box and go work on it. Okay, now we've got to get a hole drilled just big enough for this and make sure that it gets as close to the top there as possible to work with the actuator. The actuator doesn't have a lot of space to go down, so I've got to get really close to the top there. So that's my goal right now. Let's work on that. All right, so my process simply to go ahead and let the actuator come out some, and then use the jack here to just jack it up into position to get the hole lined up. You can see how this flexes over that way just a little bit because of the weight difference. And I see also the adjustment there. Push this pin through, and there we go. Pin's in. Now I know this is centered because I measured that way. Now what I'm going to do is also measure up there. I can see that I've got a little bit of a cant going that way as I oversight it a little bit that way before, so I can get that straight. So I make sure I've got this moving vertically, exactly in parallel with my door, and that way my door moved down nice and evenly, straight on both sides. So that way it doesn't get a little bound up, a little sideways or not. So I'm going to go and do that right now, get that adjust up there, get this straight, and then let's go and actuate it. All right, now I've got the actuator reconnected up here and centered down here at my new mount. I'm going to remove my clamp here that's holding up just from a safety, and that also doesn't automatically slide down, which it wants to just, of course, gradually slide down. Now let's go and actuate. Let's lower our way down and let's put in action. Looking good, nice and even. Let's take the old mount out of there. It'd be nice if this actuator were faster. All looking great. So we've got a little bit of resistance going on here. And that's the seal here up against the wall. You can see it's also a little bit sideways. And that's really just because of differences in resistance on this seal, the top seal here. So that I've got to make a little adjustments on, but we're going to start hitting some resistance as we come over the frame of the door cutout. You hear the resistance. You see it straightening out, and there we go. Stopping just above where it actually needs to be, and it's final, but I'm going to leave it there for now because that's fine for the moment. I'll have to make a little adjustment at the top. Now that I've got my new mount here at the bottom, it's a little bit shallower than the mount, the Progressive Automations mount. My mount's about an inch and a half, or it's only an inch tall. This is about an inch and a half to 2 inches tall. So now you just got to make for that adjustment by adjusting the top there. No big deal. I'll take care of that when I get the bottom pieces in here and get the seals on, so get it all adjusted just right. Makes it all seals up great. Now let's put it up. All right, here we go. This seal's really tight, and it folds over itself a little bit here in the beginning, but then it kind of corrects itself when it comes up. Yeah, that farting sound is coming from that top seal. That does rub against the wall and make that sound, but I've since got that corrected by just a little bit of adjustment on a couple things, and now it's nice and silent.
Cool.
Oh, I have to stop it. And there you go. That's what it looks like now that it's been filled with some insulation, some nice closed cell foam with a reflective layer on the back. I don't know if my cell service is going to get through, but it's definitely going to insulate this door. Thank you for watching. A lot more coming up. A lot more coming up. Please subscribe. Hang in there. I'm going to keep trying to get more of these videos out that I've already taken the content for. I'm building out this amazing expedition camper, and I will share more about how I did things and tips and tricks along the way.